In January, we aired our latest Issues Reports investigation on community redevelopment agencies, or CRAs, where we reported that though the results of some CRAs have been positive, there have been others that have left much to be desired. Our next guest was invited to be a part of our original program, but was unable to join us at that time. He is here to join us now. We are very happy to welcome Kevin Crowder, Director of Economic Development for Redevelopment Management Associates. Mr. Crowder is also the former Economic Development Director for the City of Miami Beach. Good to have you here, Kevin.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I can understand that you weren't able to come. I mean, we were getting interviews for a full month. You guys weren't able to come, but I understand. You saw the special that we did, and you took a lot of issues with some of the things we said. And what are the issues that you particularly feel were misleading or wrong about CRAs?
Well, thank you, Helen. And for me, I think there were two main areas that I thought were, maybe there were some misconceptions or full context wasn't provided. The first was really about Miami Beach and some of the context about Miami Beach and projects that were done for the redevelopment of Miami Beach. The other is the notion of accountability and the misguided perception that CRAs are not accountable and that the public does not know where the money is being spent.
Well, okay, so let's take, we have those two areas. Let's start first with Miami Beach. We said that actually Miami Beach was a very successful CRA and that it had been successful beyond anyone's imagination. There was an area of slum and blight. Anybody who was in South Beach in the 70s and 80s remember how these very old and crumbling hotels and hotels had, particularly for the aging population, everybody remembers them sitting out on the terraces to get fresh air. But there was a lot of slum, there was a lot of blight, there was a lot of crime. Yes. And that CRA, we said, was very positive in eradicating that. There are those who say that that was going to happen anyway because it's waterfront property. And you have to agree that CRAs are very successful when you're on beachfront properties, yes, right?
I would agree with that. I would say that beachfront areas that were in the condition of a Miami Beach at that time, there is some element of inevitability, but I don't believe that Miami Beach would have been as successful or successful as fast without the Miami Beach CRA.
I suppose that you could argue that it wouldn't have occurred at that time, but ultimately it was likely to occur because you see this development happening in other areas that are beachfront without having a CRA. Where we took issue was the use, if the CRA is successful, great, you were successful, close it down. But the CRA has been extended, and there's monies that's being used for CRAs, which, when you read the statute, it says the area must have slum, blight, and you have to provide affordable housing, as well as provide options for economic development. And so the issue is, this CRA was successful beyond anyone's belief, and yet now we're continuing to use CRAs in areas that are very trendy and doing amazingly well.
Well, Helen, I think those are all important issues, but I think one of the misconceptions is that all CRAs have to provide affordable housing. What the statute says is a redevelopment area is an area with slum or with blight or with the need for affordable housing to be provided, or a tourist resort oceanfront community that needs economic development. I think that affordable housing is important to a lot of different communities, but their housing reality is going to be different from one community to the next, and the housing strategies that are best for that community are going to vary from one community to the next. And so in Miami Beach, when we look at affordable housing, the Miami Beach CRA did participate in affordable housing, but CRAs are not lead housing providers. They're not created to be housing authorities, and there are a lot of different partners for affordable housing.
But it does say, and I would agree with you, and I read the statute, and the statute leaves the door open for a lot of interpretation. Yes. It does say affordable housing, it does say slum and blight, but it also says you shall provide opportunities for, and/or in other words, incentives for private business to come in and to redevelop. And everything was done, you eradicated slum and blight more than anything because you pushed it aside, not because you actually took care of the problem, but there was nothing. The only thing that was really left out was affordable housing. But that's fine.
Well,
I mean,
Helen,
because that's not a violation of statute.
But Helen, I would disagree with that. In Miami Beach, affordable housing was not left out. Today, there are 4,700 affordable housing units provided through the city's affordable housing programs, including some that were provided through the CRA.
But not within that CRA or within the CRA?
Within the CRA. There are private tax credit affordable housing projects within that CRA. There are 3 buildings that the CRA funded the purchase of in partnership with other affordable housing providers. The Miami Beach Housing Authority provides 3,000 Section 8 vouchers. That's 7,700 affordable housing, subsidized, assisted affordable housing units in Miami Beach out of a total households of 43,000.
Why do we need to use CRA dollars, which are used to provide, which are for areas that are in need? You have to be an area in need before you can establish a CRA. Why do we still need a CRA in Miami Beach today? Why do you need CRA dollars for Lincoln Road? Miami Beach is hopping, and thankfully so. Why do you need for that? Why do you need CRA dollars for the Bass Museum? It's not the responsibility of the CRA to be able to provide those type of dollars for areas that are really well-to-do.
Well, I think there may be some confusion about Lincoln Road and the Bass Museum and what CRA dollars are used for those projects and are not. Now, I do not work in Miami Beach anymore, I can't.
I would like to say you were there from 1998 to 2012?
Yes.
1998
yes.
to 2012.
Yes, and 4 years
in Miami Beach.
In Miami Beach, and 4 years before that, I worked for the business improvement districts in South Beach, Lincoln Road, Washington Avenue, Collins Avenue. But in the case of the Bass Museum and in the case of Lincoln Road, where the CRA came in is the CRA funded part of the redevelopment of Lincoln Road going back to the 1994 project. Back then, Lincoln Road, out of all of the blocks on Lincoln Road, 58% of the buildings on Lincoln Road were deteriorating. On Collins Avenue, 69% of the buildings on Collins Avenue from where the Ritz-Carlton is now up to the Roni were deteriorating. And even 48%, almost half of the buildings on the east side of Collins Avenue were deteriorating. And so there was investment made by the CRA into Lincoln Road.
And that's why it was very successful. Not only that, it was because the rents were so low, it had become an artist colony.
Right.
And now the rents are very high, and so of course the
right.
The artists have moved.
And so as the property values went up and the taxes went up, those taxes aren't going back into Lincoln Road. They stay within the city center district, but similar to the Bass Museum, the neighborhood the Bass Museum is in was a very different neighborhood 22 years ago when the CRA was created.
But you're speaking to the success of the CRA. So why do you need to continue to expand the CRA when you were successful? Shouldn't a successful CRA close?
Well, a successful CRA should close, as the one in South Point did when it achieved its mission. In the case of the City Center CRA, its mission has not been achieved. Its original 30-year time frame has not been completed. And when we look at the original intent of the CRA, which was to create a market that would attract financing for new hotel investment, and it was very successful at doing that, beginning with the Lowe's Hotel, which opened up the financing market that led to the redevelopment of, we know how many hotels. Job creation has been phenomenal there.
The Lowe's Hotel right off Lincoln Road.
Right. And the job creation has been phenomenal, but we still have more to do in Miami Beach. The Miami Beach Convention Center, which is an economic driver, it is the driver of a lot of business in those hotels and maintaining the economic viability of those hotels.
Are you telling me that without a CRA, the redevelopment of City Center or the Convention Center wouldn't exist?
I believe that is true.
Really?
I believe that is
true.
Then
why would Fontainebleau have invested $1 billion in refurbishing itself if that was the case?
Well, because the convention center is not the only driver of tourism. It is one of the most important economic drivers that we have, but there are a lot of other drivers of tourism, and the Fontainebleau is not located adjacent to the convention center. Even the Lowe's Hotel, as we've found, is not located adjacent to the convention center and is driven, and their business is driven.
But these extraordinary investments are occurring without with the benefit of CRAs. So that's why I'm saying, it's like...
No, not all of them.
Well, but the ones that we're talking about right now, I mean, not all, but certainly when you look at this, you say that the CRAs have been, I would suggest to you, and as others have suggested, that the development of the convention center in Miami Beach. Maybe it's a political payoff for other concessions made to Miami-Dade County government, and that's possible. But I would suggest to you that that is such an extraordinary piece of real estate, 52, 54 acres we're talking about. It's an extraordinary development that's going to occur with or without CRA dollars. But a developer, it would be a fool not to take advantage of this incentive if it exists, but be that the case.
Well,
and very quickly, because I want to get into your second point.
Sure. About the Miami Beach Convention Center, though, the conditions around the Miami Beach Convention Center need to be improved. In order to stay viable, it needs an on-site convention quality hotel. It needs better connections to centers of commerce like Lincoln Road and the hotel district. And so there are still conditions there that need to be addressed, and the CRA is the tool that is available to address those, to continue to grow the tax base and address jobs.
Broward County Commissioner Dale Holness has stated in our issues report special, accountability of CRAs has been a critical issue, and you took issue with that.
I did, and what I took issue with is it was implied that it's a critical issue because accountability does not exist. And that's the piece I take issue with. CRAs conduct their annual audits. CRAs submit their annual report to the county as required by state law. They conduct all of their business in the sunshine.
They should. I mean, by statute, they should. But in Broward County, some of the experiences have not been quite as positive. And as a matter of fact, Broward County took, not to get rid of CRAs, but they're going to work with them in a very different way and try to improve accountability measures. And this is County Commissioner Dale Holness stating this, and we also have Broward County Bertha Henry also stating the same thing. They had issue, the county administrator, they had issue with the way Margate and Hallandale was working their CRAs. So while you're saying it's true, it's not every CRA's experience.
Well, but I think there is some misguided and maybe misinformation there as well. The county did take issue, and the Inspector General did issue a report about Margate and Hallandale. But those two CRAs have responded to those questions in writing, and that process is still ongoing.
Right, but it was an issue of accountability, and the process is still going because it's not been satisfactory as yet. So it's that you take issue with that because you're defending CRAs, and I understand that, that's your job, but it's not because it's inaccurate.
Yes, but Helen, I think it's a little disingenuous for Broward County to accuse CRAs, the city CRAs, of not being transparent and not being accountable. If you look at the Broward County website for redevelopment, you will see the listing of all of the city CRAs. And if you go to those websites, you will find budgets, you will find their annual reports, you will find financial statements, you will find plans, you will find a lot of information about what they do.
But are they sticking to them? And that's apparently the issue. And voters in Margate, wanted the money returned to them. So there's more to it.
But before we come back to that, when we look at, again, Broward County has its own county-run CRA. When you look at the Broward County website and go to the redevelopment section, the only CRA you cannot find an annual report for, that you cannot find a financial statement for, is the Broward County CRA, the Central County CRA. Only their redevelopment plan is there. If you look at the Miami-Dade County website for redevelopment, by contrast, you will find not just links to the city CRAs, you will see on the county's website the redevelopment plans for all of the city CRAs. You'll see for the county CRAs in Dade County, you'll see the annual reports, you'll see the financial statements. So really the most non-transparent CRA in South Florida is the Broward County CRA.
But what you're suggesting is that everything that the CRAs in Broward County have posted are accurate, and it may not be.
Well, I'm not saying that everything they've posted is accurate. I'm saying that questions were raised in Margate and Hallandale, but those CRAs should be given the opportunity to respond and state their case to those questions that were made.
And they have, and it's still an ongoing investigation.
Right, and one thing I've found is with audits is usually the final audit report usually looks very different than the initial audit report that raised questions. And usually if it doesn't, there's usually some other political or power agenda at play.
You should have been available to be in our investigative reports, and you chose not to.
It was not a matter of choosing not to. I found out after the fact.
Then Your company knew. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us, Kevin Crowder.
Thank you very much.
Hope to keep this conversation going.
The first was really about Miami Beach and some of the context about Miami Beach and projects that were done for the redevelopment of Miami Beach. The other is the notion of accountability and the misguided perception that CRAs are not accountable and that the public does not know where the money is being spent.
Okay, so we have those two areas. Let's start first with Miami Beach. We said that actually Miami Beach was a very successful CRA and that it had been successful beyond anyone's imagination. There was an area of slum and blight. In January, we aired our latest Issues Reports investigation on community redevelopment agencies, or CRAs, where we reported that though the results of some CRAs have been positive, there have been others that have left much to be desired. Our next guest was invited to be a part of our original program, but was unable to join us at that time. He is here to join us now. We are very happy to welcome Kevin Crowder, Director of Economic Development for Redevelopment Management Associates. Mr. Crowder is also the former Economic Development Front Properties,
Yes.
right?
I would agree with that. I would say that beachfront areas that were in the condition of a Miami Beach at that time, there is some element of inevitability, but I don't believe that Miami Beach would have been as successful or successful as fast without the Miami Beach CRA.
I suppose that you could argue that it wouldn't have occurred at that time, but ultimately it was likely to occur because you see this development happening. Anybody who was in South Beach in the 70s and 80s, remember how these very old and crumbling hotels had, particularly for the aging population. Everybody remembers them sitting out on the terraces to get fresh air. But there was a lot of slum, there was a lot of blight, there was a lot of crime. Yes. And that CRA, we said, was very positive in eradicating that. There are those who say that that was going to happen anyway because it's waterfront property. And you have to agree that CRAs are very successful when you're on beachment director for the city of Miami Beach. Good to have you here, Kevin.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I can understand that you weren't able to come. I mean, we were getting interviews for a full month. You guys weren't able to come, but I understand. You saw the special that we did, and you took a lot of issues with some of the things we said. And what are the issues that you particularly feel were misleading or wrong about CRAs?
Well, thank you, Helen. And for me, I think there were two main areas that I thought maybe there were some misconceptions or full context wasn't provided.